Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today is going to be a focus on Rhaenyra Targaryen and how she dies during the Dance of the Dragons. There will obviously be spoilers in this video. If you didn't know that Rhaenyra dies, I'm sorry, it's pretty common knowledge as the book has been out for quite some time. A lot of Targaryens will die in the Hot D TV show as it's going to be so closely referenced to the book, which can only be a good thing. The first episode of the show has recently aired and Rhaenyra is quite young and kind of learning her trade as the heir to the Iron Throne. However, her character develops quite brilliantly in the book and I'm sure the show will portray that too. As many of you know, the whole premise of the House of the Dragon series is to focus on the civil war between the two Targaryens, Prince Aegon and Princess Rhaenyra herself. So the king's will is to have Rhaenyra take the throne after his death. He's adamant on that happening and had no plans nor any intent to place his newborn son Aegon on the throne instead. However, upon his death, the will of the king is defied by Sir Criston Cole, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and he crowns Aegon King of Westeros in place of Rhaenyra. At the time of her father's death, Rhaenyra was on Dragonstone awaiting the birth of her sixth child. The Greens in King's Landing ensured that the news of the king's death did not reach her until her own supporters in the Red Keep were either dead or imprisoned and Aegon II's coronation had already occurred. This is really sneaky, guys, and it highlights politics at its absolute worst, like a quest for power. So when news reached Rhaenyra, she went into a total rage and actually goes into early labour, producing a deformed stillborn daughter who she named Visenya. Then Rhaenyra blamed this whole tragedy on everyone involved with stealing her crown. Aegon is king and sits on the throne in Westeros, so Rhaenyra herself has a rather quick coronation of her own. The arrival of Sir Steffon Darklyn of the Kingsguard on Dragonstone, accompanied by some other supporters, was therefore celebrated as they brought with them the crown worn by Jaehaerys and Viserys. Rhaenyra was crowned with her father's crown by her husband and uncle Prince Daemon Targaryen. So then the news of her coronation reaches King's Landing. Now Aegon doesn't want a war, so he offers his sister terms that would let her and her descendants remain rulers of Dragonstone only if she renounces her claims, but being the actual rightful queen, why should she? And rightly she refuses, knowing that war was now inevitable. To gain more support to take the throne from her brother, Rhaenyra sent her son Jace on his dragon to treat with the Arryns, Manderleys and Starks, and her son Luke to treat with Lord Boros Baratheon at Storm's End. So Luke's mission was believed to be the safer journey as the Baratheons had always been a house of honour, but he arrived at Storm's End to find Queen Alicent's younger son Aemond already there. Aemond, who was riding Vhagar, killed Luke over Shipbreaker Bay as he attempted to leave after failing to gain Lord Boros' allegiance. The news of Luke's death devastated his mother. It was the first real casualty of the war to come. Rhaenyra does eventually take the capital and sits in the throne for roughly half a year. Rhaenyra insisted on fulfilling her father's wishes and takes his former seat on the Iron Throne. She accepted pleas of forgiveness and loyalty from those in the Red Keep all throughout the night. Now, although Rhaenyra was dressed in armour, Septon Eustace claims that those present witnessed the throne leaving several cuts on her legs and her left hand. The dripping blood was taken as a sign by many that the throne had rejected her and her days as ruler would be few. Now, the Iron Throne was not the most comfortable of places. It was made from blades after all, so personally I'd be taking those signs of her cutting herself with a pinch of salt. It's just a cause of inevitability. Sitting on an object that can cut you will most likely result in you being cut. Anyway, those living in King's Landing initially welcomed Rhaenyra's return as a ruler, for they had always had little love for Aegon and his brother Aemond. Rhaenyra, once in power, sent the Knights Inquisitor to pursue those who had helped Aegon escape the capital. This resulted in the spikes of the gates starting to be filled with more and more heads each day. It's not a pretty sight, is it? And it instills fear rather than belief and worship. Another issue Rhaenyra had to face was the dwindling finances of the treasury. Now, although the late King Viserys Targaryen I had left the treasure vaults full of gold upon his death, the treasury was completely empty by the time Rhaenyra had taken the city. The Greens had sent 3/4 of the gold away for safekeeping and spent the rest prior to the fall of the capital, which was a huge turning point as it left Rhaenyra in desperate need of coin, which meant placing new taxes, higher taxes and more taxes on the populace that increased day by day. The small folk, being bled dry of their hard-earned money, slowly started to see them turn against her and eventually nicknamed her King Maegor with Teats, a reference to the former King Maegor the Cruel. After hearing of the two betrayers, Rhaenyra grew paranoid and declared that the two remaining dragon seeds, Sir Adam Valerion and the girl Nettles, both traitors, a decision that would lead to disastrous consequences because Rhaenyra's hand, who was Lord Corlys Valerion, had already named Adam his own heir. So this creates a big problem because the Queen was acting out of state of paranoia. Corlys alerted Adam in time for the night to flee upon the back of a dragon, Smoke, which ultimately leads to the arrest of the Hand, which caused the entire fleet of House Valerion to abandon Rhaenyra's cause. This was a massive blow and a clear example of how poor a decision Rhaenyra made. Now, with Adam gone, the Queen sets her efforts to having the girl Nettles killed, once again without any real proof, most likely bitter that Nettles shared a bed with Daemon. Rhaenyra sends a letter to Lord Manfred Mouton, commanding him to kill the girl. Lord Mouton refuses, as Nettles was under the protection of guest rights. He feared Prince Daemon would kill them anyway if they followed Rhaenyra's orders, which is crazy because Daemon is her husband, and he saw there was no winning option, since refusing to obey Rhaenyra's order would make him a traitor to the crown anyway. Insisting that King Viserys I and Jaehaerys I would never have asked such a thing, Manfred decided to change his allegiance to Aegon II after Nettles and Daemon had left his roof. So Rhaenyra loses even more support now for leading with claims that she can't really back up. So, with Rhaenyra losing so much support, the next event really shifts the balance against the Queen when a massive riot springs up in King's Landing after the suicide of Rhaenyra Targaryen, who was beloved of the small folk. Many said she was killed on Rhaenyra's orders, but the strongest rumour was that of her being forcibly impregnated after being placed in a brothel as punishment. The fact that both of these stories were so easily believed showed how much the city had turned against Rhaenyra. The riots soon escalated to the storming of the dragon pit, which resulted in the death of 4 dragons and the death of her own son, Joffrey Valerion. After this, Rhaenyra knows she's lost power completely and she flees King's Landing, refusing to let Aegon out of her sight after the death of her other children. Terrorised and despairing, she grew grey and weary as she headed for Dragonstone. The Queen was actually forced to sell her father's crown, also worn by the late Jaehaerys, to raise coin to buy passage on a Braavosi merchant ship, the Violande. Once she reached Dragonstone, where she believed she was now safe, Rhaenyra was betrayed by Sir Alfred Broom, whose men slew the remainder of the Queen's guard. Her half-brother Aegon II then fed her to his own dragon Sunfire after the dragon had bathed her in flames at Dragonstone. King Aegon II decreed that Rhaenyra was never a queen and that she only be referred to as princess in all chronicles and court records. There you have it, guys. That is how Rhaenyra Targaryen dies. Thanks again for watching. I really hope you are enjoying watching the rest of the Hot D series. Have a great day and I will see you very soon.